Have you ever been lost in the woods? How about in the middle of the night in the rain with absolutely no way out? Well, today we're going deep into the woods because I have 8 camping scary stories told in the rain to tell you. So grab your raincoat and waterproof matches because we're getting lost in the true deep woods. Let's begin. Just after sunset, our group of friends and I set up camp near an old abandoned cabin. It was pretty spooky, but hey, we were a little too drunk to really care all that much. That is, until we realized there was no cell service and we had no way out. We had followed a logging road in, and now it was dark and the rain was pouring. We could see the headlights of cars on the far side of the lake, but they couldn't see us. If we didn't get out soon, we would be spending the night here. We decided to follow the sound of rushing water upstream, in the hopes that it would lead us to another road. And instead of water, what do we find but a dead end? Not just any dead end, though. This one had a rotting wooden sign hanging from a tree by 2 rusty chains. The rain made it hard to read, but the words "Beware of dog" were scrunched sideways across the wood. A large dog, big enough to take down a human, began to growl. We started to run back the way we came, but the further we went, the darker it got. It felt like the trees themselves were reaching out for us with their bare branches. Then we heard a noise behind us. It sounded like the growl of a bear, and when we turned around, we saw a huge shape running toward us through the trees. One look at those yellow eyes was enough to make me turn and run. We didn't dare stop to help anyone who might have been injured or worse, bitten by the beast. We ran until we saw the headlights again and stumbled out onto the main road. Safe at last. There are some places you should never hike alone. No one tells you that until it's too late. For example, at Big Bend National Park in Texas, you can hike the Lost Mine Trail. It's an isolated trail with no cell service, which I hate. But my friend invited me and said he would meet me there, so I figured YOLO, let's go. It was love at first sight. The mountain was so beautiful, but I shouldn't have gone alone because I quickly got lost. The trail wasn't marked well and there was no one else around. I thought about turning back, but then I heard a voice. "Hey, you okay over there?" I called back, "Yeah, I'm fine." But my voice sounded weak even to me. Maybe I wasn't fine. I thought about how many hikers disappear in national parks every year. I kept telling myself it would be okay, because there were rangers searching for me. Or maybe I just wanted to believe that. I continued hiking until it started raining. It poured. I pulled out my jacket and huddled under a rock until it passed. When I looked up, I saw a pair of eyes staring at me from above. I looked away quickly because when I turned back, the eyes were still there. I scrambled away and fell on my hands and knees. I ran until I saw the lights of the visitor center and the welcome sign. Relief washed over me as I walked into the warm, safe building. You know, it's funny. They say laughter is the best medicine, but sometimes only the best horror stories will do. And I've got a good one for you right after this. Now back to the video. Sometimes you just don't want to go camping, but your friends invite you anyway. I had woken up that morning feeling terrible, but I didn't want to let my friends down, so I went anyway. We drove 4 hours to get to this secluded campsite by a lake. I was miserable the whole time, but then I saw the tent they had set up for me. It was beautifully decorated with fairy lights and the words, "Get well soon." Underneath a rock they had written my name with a flashlight. I smiled for the first time that day and told them it was perfect. When they told me they had planned a surprise campfire, I was less than thrilled. I just wanted to sleep, but I laid down in the grass while they got everything set up. I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep until suddenly I heard a twig snap. I sat up and stared at the darkness around me. I tried to calm myself down, but then I heard footsteps in the forest. My friends were nowhere in sight. I stood up and screamed for them. I don't remember what I said, but it was something like, "Guys, come help me. There's someone in the woods." All I heard in response was more footsteps. I don't know how long I stood there screaming, but eventually I stopped. I was soaked to the bone and freezing. Then I saw a flashlight beam in the distance. I waved my arms and screamed, "Help me." The light came closer and closer until I saw my friends standing in front of me. "I thought you were dead," I cried. They said they had been looking for me everywhere. I asked them if they had seen anyone else, but they hadn't. Maybe I had imagined the whole thing. I shrugged off my wet jacket and went to sit in the campfire while my friends looked for somewhere else to pitch their tents. But when I turned around, the fire was out. I looked back at the tents and realized my friends had disappeared. I was completely alone in the dark. And then I saw a shadow standing behind me. I turned around and screamed, but there was nothing there. I ran to my friend's tent and collapsed inside it, shivering with fear. In the morning I woke up and found my friends sleeping inside their tent. I poked my head out and scanned the area. There was no sign of anyone else. I called out to my friends, but they were still asleep. I shook them awake and we left the campsite. We never went back. It's always fun to go camping with your friends, but sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones that lurk closest to us. After hearing these stories, you probably won't want to go camping anytime soon. But what about hiking? What could possibly go wrong? Everything, actually. Just ask the guy who hiked the White Mountains. It was the summer of 2013 and I was backpacking with 3 friends in the Presidential Range in New Hampshire. The trailhead was near the town of Gorham, which has a quaint little general store where you can buy snacks and last-minute gear. We parked at the end of the road and started hiking. After a few hours, we came across a river that had recently flooded. We weren't sure how to cross it, but then we found a log that looked sturdy enough to hold my weight. I crossed first, then my friend Joe helped our friend Chris cross. The log was slick and Chris slipped. Joe reached out to help him, but he lost his balance and they both fell into the fast-moving water. Chris suffered a concussion, a broken leg and a dislocated shoulder. The three of us carried him on our backs for the next 2 days until we could get him to a hospital. On the third day, we finally reached a car. I will never forget the kindness of strangers as people offered water, food, blankets, and a place to stay. We never did find out what happened to Joe and Chris. The problem with nature is that it doesn't care about your plans. It'll just destroy them all. You might think the scariest camping stories come from the deep woods, but sometimes you don't have to go far. One of my most terrifying camping experiences happened in my own backyard. I live in a small cottage with my husband and daughter. Behind our home is a wooded area with lots of tall trees. We usually spend our summers swimming in the lake and barbecuing with friends and family. But one year things took a scary turn. It was a hot July evening and we had a full moon. We were sitting in our backyard with a couple of friends drinking and laughing. Suddenly, we heard a loud crack. We looked up and saw a tree that had fallen during the storm and landed on our roof. It was a very heavy tree and we were worried that it had damaged our roof enough to cause a leak. My husband and I looked at each other and shrugged. I guess it's just another adventure. We got out the machete and cut a walkway through the branches so we could check the damage. We couldn't risk waiting until morning because if the roof had caved in, we could have had a gas leak. It was terrifying because the tree had fallen right across our bedroom roof. I was so scared that something had fallen inside the house. The tree was blocking the door and the windows were boarded up, so we had to crawl through the doggy door to get inside. We checked the room and were relieved to see that nothing had fallen in. We crawled back outside and started making a plan to clear the rest of the tree. We needed to get it away from the house before another storm came. We worked until late into the night and eventually cleared enough of the tree to fit our mattresses under it. We used tarps to cover the hole in the roof and hoped for the best. In the morning, we woke up to find that another tree had fallen and landed on the first one. I was glad that we had gotten out of Dodge. I was so shaken that I couldn't concentrate on anything else. The rest of the day, I kept thinking about how close we had come to losing our home. We spent the next week cleaning up the mess and repairing the damage. It was a crazy experience that I will never forget. So there you have it, 8 camping scary stories told in the rain. Now it's time for you to tell me yours. Click the link below to submit your story, and if you want to hear more terrifying tales, click the video on screen now. Thanks for watching and happy camping. Wait, did you hear that? Someone's out there in the woods and they want to play a game with you. They're coming for you. Run. Ah, now you can't escape. They're too quick, you're too slow. Haha, see you soon.